porridge with fruits that you have, actually we eat it pretty much every day.
But not in that kind of portions. It's like
not in that kind of
portions.
Yeah, so the porridge is made of rolled oats, chia and flax seeds, and oh my god, what happened to you?
she fell down.
Oh my god.
Janelle, if you eat it, there's also there's a chair here, there's a chair nearby the table, so you can see it.
Do you have a big spoon?
Big spoon?
Yes. Yeah, we do have
This one? The last one?
Yes.
Push it.
There is no milk in the porridge, so I cooked it with water and almond milk. I think it tastes better. Also, we're kind of like trying to avoid that dairy products, but not all of them, and so we're not going wild about that. So we do love dairy products, and you can see the low-fat plain yogurt here. So why do we have here is because you may see on another plate there is a homemade granola. So I actually love granola a lot, but I was always unhappy with the selection in the stores. So first of all, I don't like all of the dried fruits that are in mixes that are sold in the stores, and secondly, there are always something artificial, right? Or palm oil, or some stabilizers and so on. So actually, to make a homemade granola is very easy. So you just mix same rolled oats, mix of nuts, mix of dry fruits, mix of seeds, honey, olive oil, and olive oil, and you bake it for half an hour in the oven. And you can cook a very big batch and just store it, so it will be perfectly stored for many days in your
What temperature?
Hmm?
What temperature?
I usually put everything in the fridge, you know, like
No.
180.
180. And this is so cool because in Starbucks it costs like $5.50 or $6, and it's actually so simple to make at home. So.
Right. So please do try it. Mix it with yogurt; it will be delicious. And right in the center, you see these are the so we call them energy balls. This is a power snack that you also can make in a batch and keep it at home, and then take with you at work or when you sit at home. And I was on maternity leave for the past 4 months, and when you actually sit at home, you really want to eat. Not because you're nursing, it's just like when you are at home, you need to do something, you want to munch. So it's better to have something healthy. So it is a blended mix of dried fruits, lemon, the whole lemon together with the zest. Then there we have seeds, and it is covered with a grated coconut. So please try. I hope you will like it. If you find the porridge plain, we have honey on the table. Please add, right?
I think we have a nutritional composition in the next slide.
We do have, yes. Here we go.
So
yeah. So we have nutrition composition for energy balls, and this is the nutrition composition for the batch, right? So not for the one.
Yeah, it's about 10 balls. It's 900 calories for 10 balls. So each one is just about one energy gel. So it's like 100 cal in each ball.
Yes.
So it's quite powerful, and it's all really fiber rich. So it keeps you really satiated for a long time.
Right. Yes. And here's the nutrition composition for the breakfast bowl. So why did we invite you for the breakfast? There are reasons for this. First of all, breakfast is the most the most important meal of the day. So the most powerful nutrition. So those nutrients that you get during the breakfast, of course, depending on what kind of breakfast you have, but we're talking about healthy breakfast, that type of breakfast that you're currently having.
Not the hash brown.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. So those nutrients that you get during the breakfast, they will not be substituted by all other meals of the day if you omit the breakfast, right? So if you think that, okay, I'll have my lunch, I'll have my snack and dinner, so it will not give you the same benefit as the breakfast will give to your body. So breakfast kicks up your metabolism, it manages your sugar, the blood sugar level, so it gives you a lot of energy, and set the tone for the day. It also prevents you from binge eating. Then the second observation that you may see, like this breakfast that you have is a high carbohydrate breakfast, right? So we're not here for high fat.
There are many
low
diets.
carb.
Yeah, there are many diets in the world, but like we're
Yeah. So
high carbs.
we assume you don't have predisposition for diabetes, right? So everyone is healthy here. So we strongly believe that high carbohydrate breakfast, and again we're talking about complex carbohydrates, healthy one. We're not talking about white rice, processed food, white bread, and so on. So fiber rich. So yes, these carbs that you see on the table come from whole grains, which is rolled oats, right? Then fruits, nuts, and seeds. We made the bread out of wholemeal flour together with seeds and olive oil. So these carbs are complex. So that means that they are rich in fiber, and fiber gives you the bulk, right? That basically give you satiety. So that makes you feel full faster, and you don't overeat. So it is really, really hard to overeat carbohydrates. It is much easier to overeat fats. And then, Arseny, he is running crazy distances. Yeah. So, we tried different types of breakfasts, and I'm also athletic, but not as competitive as Arseny. I don't do races. But I eat the same food, and I can say that it helps a lot at work, right? Because I have the high level of energy. I can eat, such breakfast will keep me going until lunch without any snacks. So basically, it gives a lot of benefit for me as well. So and then we also have results of the research. There was a research done with endurance athletes, and basically there was a comparison of low carb, high fat diet versus the high carbohydrate diet. And one of the observations that they made is that when you consume such breakfast in the morning, after basically there is such a concept as a sleep low, right? So that means sleep low, that you need to consume a high carbohydrate meal before your high intensity training in the evening, right? Then you need to sleep without consumption of any carbohydrate. So basically you do not recover with carbs after your high intensity training. And on the fasting state, in the morning you do low intensity training. So you lower your aerobic threshold.
The low threshold. So the idea is you do the HIIT when you have your glycogen replenished, and you do a lot of effort or reps. And then you basically replenish glycogen through homeostasis. So after the HIIT, you go for protein-rich meal so that it allows you to build up a bulk of the muscle tissue that you destroy. But it should be really hard training. But then you also do the homeostasis of glycogen. So you use your, for example, fat reserves. Like there's the way to replenish the energy store. There are two batteries in our body, right? There's fat and there's the glycogen, which is the carbs. So there are two different types of energy stores. You're jumping too ahead probably, but basically the morning low is the way for you to not refill your carbohydrate energy storage, the glycogen. It's not refilled after a high intensity workout where you actually deplete it. So you use it all, then it's empty. Then you use overnight your own fat stores to replenish the glycogen stores, and in the morning you go for low intensity, and then you further reduce the fat stores by keeping the good proportion of the glycogen still in the body. So then it allows you to do two things. It teaches your body to use more oxygen. So to burn fats efficiently, you need way more oxygen than to burn carbohydrates. You do two things. So you reduce the amount of fat in your body, and you train your body to absorb more oxygen. You use your kind of signals from the metabolic system. You signal your cardiovascular system that you need more oxygen because the efforts are continuous. You do the long, but at the same time low effort training. So it's called the morning low protocol. And that increases the VO2 max. So there was like a controlled study like 30 athletes, 2 groups, 15 each, and one was recovering after heat in the evening, and another was not, going basically like protein-rich meal without carbohydrates. And then they went for low intensity, and over like 4 weeks, VO2 max improved like 5 or like 4%. I don't remember exactly. So that's called the morning low protocol. Just
Sure, yeah, so
Yeah,
I didn't plan to go in this
Yeah.
detail. But the point that I was
Morning
trying to
low
make
already,
is
like,
that, yeah, so when you train on a fasting stomach, right, and then you have such breakfast, it will maximize the oxidation of your fat storage that you have in your
But it's after,
adipose
definitely
tissue.
this break is after.
After the training,
After
not
the
before.
training. Yeah, not before.
Yeah, so a lot of unexpected stuff can happen to you if you have such breakfast on the training.
You do that before the race, though.
Yes,
It's different.
yes. So this is definitely a great pre-race nutrition. Again, a few hours before the race starts. Yeah. Okay. So another point that I would like to make about the high carbs, there is a lot of discussion right now happening about the gut health, right? So a lot of people have problems with their gut, leaky gut, which leads to a lot of autoimmune disease and celiac disease. Whatnot, the high blood pressure, diabetes, and so on. Basically, the fiber that we have in carbohydrates, it is a food for microbes that live in our intestines. We have like trillions of them and 400 different species living in our intestines, and they are in the balance. So some of them are good, some of them are pathogenic, so they are bad. These are fungus, one of them. So when you have a disbalance, this is when it starts destroy your flora, right? So intestines, and so the fiber is the food for good bacteria in your gut, right? And the refined, basically processed food, refined grains, sugar, this is the food for your pathogenic microbes. So like if you have any of you experienced the fungus and you went to the doctor, the first thing that they tell you is remove sugar from your diet. So like go on a healthy diet or eat a lot of vegetables. So that's the reason for it. So, don't feed your bad bacteria, so in order to not destroy your gut health. Yeah, so here we go. So then basically this is Arseny.
Okay.
Yeah, well, you guys know Arseny very well, right?
Who's
You know that
Arseny?
he's a-
Who is it?
Who is it? Who's the guy? Who's the guy?
He is a crazy dude. So, yeah, recently he ran 100 miles in Chiang Mai mountain. So what was the elevation?
8,000 meters total.
8,000 meters. So
I
yeah.
should update this slide.
Yes. So but like he's the life slide for this event. You can see his
I'm not a
t-shirt.
full-time athlete. This is all fun.
Yeah, this is all fun. But he also ran 100 kilometers. He has a nutrition diploma, and he actually did a research in Singapore about kayakos. Can you share more about
Basically,
that?
I had a controlled study of trying to figure who dips and who sips. And I figured out that it's equal. So half of the population dips, half of the... So I classify Singaporeans into dippers and sippers.
Yes.
And it's equally likely to meet one of them. So we can do a controlled study right now, but it could be skewed. You could all be dippers or sippers.
So some of you go around the island with him every week, and so I usually go for breakfast with him and support him on the crazy races. So yeah, but if you wonder where such crazy people are made, they're made in St. Petersburg. This is the northern capital of Russia.
Don't go there.
Or if you go there, go in July. So that's the best time to go. So together we are running our Instagram page, FoodBuddy. So we basically share our experience, the food that we eat, the races that are seen in Iran, and whatnot. Yeah. So,
You see, I put myself on with one of the top athletes. There's young Frodino on the top of the slide and me on the bottom. So I'm like a neighbor.
So let's talk. How many carbs do you need to eat, right? And again, so Arseny, if you would like to cover this, like another evidence for high carbohydrate diet is that like basically the top athletes, top elite athletes, they are
That's
all
the
on a
old
high
one, yeah. We need to.
carbohydrate diet.
He improved it from 202.57 down, so it's like 201 now. But anyway, so yeah, it's the wrong number there. But like my bad actually. Like I remember I was preparing. He basically was on a high carb diet, and when he was running, he stopped at 12 aid stations, and every aid station he sipped a little small bottle of carbohydrates. And there was a guy, his supporter, Eliud Kipchoge this year. He crashed the world record. If you guys are not in the team, so he crashed the world record for a marathon, improved it by 1 minute 18 seconds. And again, the number is like actually minus 1 minute 18 seconds from that. Anyway. And what he done, he had a supporter that ran through all like 8 stations, pacing the race pace of Kipchoge, passing him his small bottle of really highly loaded carbs. We don't know what's there, so he never revealed what was there. So he was sipping it, and then the supporter will jump on a bike, cycle to the next aid station, and do the same. So these are 12 sprints actually. So the guy that was besides him, like a volunteer from Germany, he had to like do bike run 12 times just to feed him with this hard ride. It was really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this one actually was revealed recently. The nutritionist. I do have the materials that they shared. So Sky Team's nutrition protocol during Giro d'Italia was published, and they actually had a talk in uni of, I think it was in Manchester. I've sent you all these details, but anyway, so they had like down to a gram of what, when, for whom, compared to their lactic threshold versus long distance versus like time trial. Yeah, so they had a very detailed protocol in like counts of Haribo candies to improve the overall performance of Sky Team. Yeah, and then Chris Froome, he smashes this every year. He wins like an enormous amount of stages and overall zeros. Yeah, so that's partially because he's well looked after by their in-race nutrition.
Okay, so back to the question, how much carbs do I need to consume? So like our approach is that you need to eat carbs like a professional triathlete, professional athlete. So what does it mean? You need to consume exactly the amount that you exactly need, the amount that is just enough for you, depending on your lifestyle, depending on how much training do you have. The thing about human body is that it is always in equilibrium, right? So if you overfeed a person, let's say by 10%, right? So he will be in the positive nutrition state for a bit, but then he will reach his equilibrium. So his body will become bigger. So that means that the energy that body will require will be exactly the same amount to support this enlarged body by 10%, right? So in simple terms, the more you eat, the more you want, right? Because the more you need energy to support your body, right? Even the most obese people in the world, they are in their energy equilibrium. So that means it costs you much more to run your body when you are very big.
So in integrated detail, since you went there, basically your fat has the reserves of fat in your body. They control the signaling hormone called leptin. And leptin, when you introduce more fat in the body by overeating, the body will reserve it because we are all born like many 100,000 years ago, and we were hunting and picking. So when there were like 3-4 days without food, we were used to run on our own fat. We don't have any problem more in developed societies. So our body is used, we were designed like that. Our body is used to kind of store the excessive amount of carbs quickly into fat. But then what happens is the fat then has a signaling connection to your hunger. So the more fat you have, the more leptin you secrete. The leptin will actually reduce your satiation state. So if you, based on like 10% example of caloric intake, you overfeed 10%, next day you will overeat again 10%, just because of the signaling inside the body. It doesn't happen like in 1 hour, but over 1 day, that's very dangerous to overeat. Because next day you will eat exactly to support your net new short. You think it's like one day, but exactly hunger-wise, you will be supporting exactly new weight. You will not come back. So you need to be mindful about it.
Right, yeah. So, and then, yeah, here's the
Wow.
very interesting
Formula.
slide.
Yeah, and also if you want to race, it's very simple. If you want to
Yeah.
race, I just put it there, like you see the mechanics. If you want to race, you always move forward.
Normal.
Yeah, but like when you weight more, you need more energy to bounce back from the planet. You cannot reduce the planet's weight, but you want to race faster and achieve better results. That's why you really want to reduce the amount of energy you yourself expel into bouncing off the planet. You want to go forward. So for that, you need to reduce mass. It's very simple. You
Right.
cannot be like a super quick runner if you're a very big runner. It is not proportional.
Another constraint that our bodies have is the heat dissipation, right? So there is a, let me just quickly, here we go. Yeah, we're
So
back.
skin area, here you can see, like, let me talk through because it's going to be faster. So skin area, yeah, skin area is not increasing as much and as linear as the amount of energy you have to dissipate when your mass grows. So you have this example on the left hand side. Basically, a heavier athlete has to cool itself because it just has not much skin. The amount of skin doesn't grow, and this is your dissipation in the air. So the amount of skin does not grow, but your mass grows dramatically. So you need to pull it through the gravity. You exert more energy. It costs you more to pull yourself down instead of again putting it into forward motion in the race.
Any
Especially-
questions here?
Anyone who needs any heat dissipation calculation there? I'm fat.
Yeah, so the slimmer you are, the leaner you are, it is easier for you to run, right? So you will not feel yourself very hot and humid and huff and puff on the road. All right, okay, so yeah, and basically if you wonder what is the ideal racing weight, right? So there is one approach that can be used, is the basically look at your base metabolic index, BMI, right?
Body mass index.
Body mass index, sorry. Here's the formula again, you can calculate it, right? But the approach is that you can calculate your BMI, and here's the table. So if you are striving for ideal race weight, then it should be in the lowest 30% of the healthy range, or in that range that you have. So you always need to strive towards the healthy one, right? And stay in the lower 30% area. So yeah.
Lower 20s, yeah. So
Lower
that's
20s.
when people ask me like, what should I eat? There is no answer. It basically starts with like, what's your BMI? What's your BMI? And like the ideal race weight, yeah, it's like 30% from the bottom of it. By the way, there's this is the one from HPB from Health Hub. There's it's a little bit different between the Asian BMI so-called and the usual like American BMI or whatever, not American. The research suggests, the controlled research suggests that Asian people do have more internal tissue fat mass, so it's not in the skin, but there is also like in between organs in the body, the adipose tissue that holds the things together. It has much more reserves of fat, so those are not as composed as like European or Caucasian. So if you look at the BMI calculation, always go into the HPB if you're like looking for your particular BMI. It's just calculated slightly differently. So Health Promotion Board takes the so-called Asian BMI.
Yeah. So and again, the ideal race weight is the weight that you need at the race, at the moment of race, right? So when you are not in the race preparation mode, then your weight can fluctuate like 8%, right, from your ideal race weight. All right. So yeah, and again, so back to the carbohydrates, right? So it is quite hard to overeat them, but it's much easier to overeat fat. But if you lucky enough to overeat a lot of carbs, right, they will convert into fat. The magic about fat is that it breaks down quite. It's quite difficult to break down fat. It needs a lot of oxygen. Here is the table that basically shows how much oxygen you need to inhale in order to burn your fat.
And here's a quick question. What is the major, like when we breathe, what do we breathe? What's the major part of the air? Nitrogen, right? It's not oxygen, right? So we're speaking about when we see 2 liters, you see the 2 liters for the fat? Fat needs 2 liters per gram. So usually you inhale about like 3.5, 4 liters. But out of that, after like just to connect to your own breath, 3 liters per breath, it's actually like only 10% oxygen or 15% oxygen, I don't remember. So to break down 1 gram of fat, you need to do 3 full inhales. Like this is how much you need to breathe, how efficient your breathing system should be. It's not the air, it's actual oxygen. You need 2 liters of oxygen.
Right, but the misconception is that when people trying to lose their weight, right, or burn some fat after a festive season, they go for high intensity training. What happens is that our body switches. The moment you consume less oxygen, right, and you breathe very fast, the body switches to another energy source, which is carbs, right? And this is what you are burning. You're burning your glycogen stores. You don't burn your fat. So in order to burn your fat, you actually need to do a very slow training below your aerobic threshold.
Yeah, so that is actually a very important learning. So your heart is a muscle. So actually you don't disconnect your heart from the muscles of your body. When you do exercise, you treat it as a cardiovascular system. The idea behind it is that at some level you are exhorting your heart to that maximum trained muscle memory. It will progress, but it takes time to train your heart. It actually can shrink and grow. Heart is a muscle, but at some point the amount of every pump, like the volume of every pump that your heart does, stops. This is the plateau of the green line. So then when you push your high intensity interval training more and more and more, your heart rate grows because you need more oxygen, but you're not increasing your every individual pump of the heart. So at that time you need to either, this is the way you inform your body to start growing your heart muscle. And this is why if you want to improve, you need to do interval trainings. It's very important for the athletes to do intervals. Push yourself to the limit. But then this is just a signal for slow, gradual improvement of your heart. But if you really want to reduce fat, then you don't even go there. You use maximum oxygen, which is it's considered the threshold, like where the switch happens, and it's lactic threshold aerobic base minus like 10% of your heart rate. So for every person it's individual, you can count it. But like, don't do high interval when you want to burn fat.
Yep.
And this is what Lily was doing.
Exactly. So if you're lucky enough to overeat carbs, so then it will be converted into fat. So to the question, how much carbs do you really need to eat? As I mentioned, it will depend on the amount of training that you have and the lifestyle that you have. So this is the table that is suggested by Matt Fitzgerald. Matt Fitzgerald is a famous American triathlete coach. Our senior person who met with him.
Can you go back? Yeah, the way that it's suggested is we have some reserve of carbs in our body. This is on the right hand side. So the glycogen that I've mentioned is in everyone's body individually, different. But in this table, you can see like you have carbs every time in your body. You have some amount of carbs. This is in the liver, in the muscle, and in the blood. So you have about 100 grams in the liver. This is the kind of the battery cells. So you have, as I said, you have like 2 types of battery cells in the body. Glycogen and then triglycerides in muscles. So triglycerides in adipose tissue and inside muscles. So when we speak about glycogen, it's not a lot of it. So you can see like for a 70 kg person, it's like 100 grams in liver, 400 grams scattered around the body in the muscle, and just a few grams in the blood always just floating around. So you have about 2,000 calories. It should be kilocalories, or like my bad, I should correct it. But that's basically for every type of energy you need, not only for physical exercise, it's also to keep your body warm,
Yeah.
to keep your muscle organs inside the body working, to keep to keep everything working. It's not really for running.
Brain consumes the most consuming organ of our body, the energy consuming.
So when you hit, there's this low, or it's called low or hit the wall. Basically, when you deplete glycogen, you slow down. You only can start using triglyceride because you empty on them. They will get refilled. There's like this called ketosis that allows you to refill glycogen through the remains of fat in your body. But it will be very inefficient. From the physical conditioning, when you run a long distance at like 30 kilometers, when you exert your glycogen, if you didn't eat the energy gel, if you run a marathon, you hit the wall at like 20 or 25. You need to eat additional nutrition sources to top up this system so it continues you forward. That's why James Lowe is so fast, because he always drinks what? Tailwind. It's like he doesn't drink water, he just drinks carbs. That's why he's so fast. That's bad, by the way, so don't do that. So that combination allows you basically, we know how much, go for it.
Yeah.
We know how much energy is needed to run. We know how much a person needs, like per gram, to move himself in a particular pace. So this guy done some calculation. It's not really from like the sky. You can figure out how much calories this is through running, by the way. This is not through triathlon. This is only for running. So like you can figure how much calories you need to burn a week to suppose like run 100 kilometers or something like that. And then your daily, you look at your week of exercise and you look how many minutes of running you do daily. And then based on your weight, you can calculate how much carbs you need to top up on average. This is the table that he suggests. So it's actually, yeah.
Yeah, so if you calculate your weight, right, body weight, you will see that not so much carbs you need to consume in order to perform well. So most of the time we overeat. So this is all about eating carbs like a professional.
Do you guys have any questions on carbs? Like carbs, good, bad, any thoughts? Glycogen, fat?
The last thing that you mentioned about the guy drinking KOE during like how is it that during race? I mean, if you race, you're not taking off.
Yeah, but he does it when he trains.
Oh, okay.
That's what the joke was. Yeah, he does it like all the time. Definitely when you race, you do that. So when I start racing, like here's like in my front water bottle, in my race bike, like I'll just show you how much I have. Like in my this bike, this is the bike I have. Here's the water bottle. You can see this. So here goes 800 calories of glucose here. And when I go off the swim into the bike, I start drinking it through here. Then I have another water bottle here. It has 400 calories of glucose. And then I have another water bottle here with electrolytes, just in case I need to prevent muscle cramps. But it's like I go sugar. So you need to do that. But he does it on the training app, which is not good. I should probably bring my bike somewhere there. So guys, if you want to check it out, like yeah, I have a cool German-made bike. So I'm not sponsored by them, but it's cool.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about the high quality fuel, right? And what exactly you need to eat in order to be healthy, perform well in your sports activities and at work. Before we talk about the fuel itself, let's talk about the why are you gaining weight while you are still training? You train very hard, but you're still gaining weight. So most of the time it is because you are compensating. So
that's bad.
Yeah, so we have, this is very psychological. It's in our head, everyone has it. I train hard, I deserve it. I deserve this cookie, and I have a sugar rush. I need something. Please give it to me immediately, right?
Then you chocolate,
Chocolate fries.
Chocolate
first, yeah. So I can afford it now. So most of the time we can't really afford it because your body, the proper recovery this is what you need after the training. Most of the time you don't even need it. You need just a hydration. You need to drink something. Because if you look at the recovery and how much carbs and proteins do you need to consume, again, based on the epidural approach, is like 1.2, at maximum 1.2 carbohydrate per kilogram of your weight, and 1 gram of protein per each 4 grams of carbohydrates that you have in your meal. And this is only after a very long distance, so like 20 kilometers plus.
When you deplete your glycogen stores,
yes.
again, these numbers are not like, it's not science. He just suggests the numbers easy to consume because he assumes you're running. So it would be better.
Yes.
But also, like, it's not, the compensation is not extra meal. It could be like larger dinner. So you eat a little bit more for dinner because you thought you went for a run.
Yes.
So that's also compensation.
Yes. Yeah. So if you just benchmark yourself versus 20 kilometers run, right? Did you really had a good training and you can afford the a compensation recovery meal? If not, then just have a drink. So another thing is it is really important to understand what is hunger and what is appetite. So hunger is a very physical need, right? So it will really depend on what you did before. So what did you eat? What did you do? Did you train or did you work hard and so on?
Let's just ask the guys. Do you see that bicycle on the left-hand side with those really tasty pastries? Yeah, like it really looks cool, right? Would you mind having a bite just to check it out, right? Because it's psychological. You're like, I want to explore that. That guy is creative. He hang them out and like they look good. And I remember pastry tasted good, so I'd rather maybe pay a couple of dollars just to check it out. It's so cool. This is called appetite.
Appetite.
It's not hunger.
Yeah. So this is psychological, right? So when you see plenty of food, right? So for example, you go a buffet, and there is actually a research that shows that when people see a lot of food variety, they tend to eat more, right? So because they want to try this, and that. This is how you gain more calories. So the right thing to do is to actually stay boring, and go exactly with the same meal pretty much all the time. So as I said, like this is the breakfast that we usually have, right? So it is exactly the same option. We are eating it all the time. Our brain gets tidy much faster, So you don't really get this unnecessary appetite. You get just enough to not to be hungry, right? To get an energy and keep going. Yeah.
That's what just detail.
Exactly.
Do you guys need some water, by the way? Like if you I understand I'm sitting next to the water and probably you're around the table. If you need water, just signal to me. Anyone water?
Maybe you need to put it here.
Yeah, put it there. Yeah, I'll put it there and maybe like if you want
give
some.
some water today.
Yeah, I'll push the water down and we also have remains of the compote.
Compote, please.
Compote or it's a punch.
I would say it is a punch. To
It's
be
a
honest.
punch. It's a-
It is a punch. Yes. So
It is
like
a
compote,
fancy.
Compote, s'il vous plaît.
Yeah, and
We'll
see
see.
if anyone wants some coffee also, coffee or tea, just signal me.
Right, yeah. And it is always a good idea to give yourself time, right? When you eat, just give yourself, and you still feel hungry, right? But you understand that it was like full of food. Just give yourself time because you will feel satiety in a while, right? So just give yourself like another 5-10 minutes. This is when the satiation will kick in your body. Yeah. So that will be the signal to your brain that you are full, right? So it takes time. It doesn't happen exactly at the moment you finish the last spoon of your meal.
And a lot of our metabolization starts with chewing. So with saliva when it appears, it starts signaling. It already has some enzymes to break down starch, right? And it's right in your mouth when you start chewing. So for example, starches, you start breaking them down, decomposing them with saliva. But also when you start chewing, you're increasing your thermic effect of food. So you're actually pushing more energy back into your stomach so that you can consume it more efficiently. So if you eat mindfully and slow, then your hunger gets satiated faster and your appetite goes lower.
So another important thing to remember is that satiety is not only the calories, right? It is also the volume. So, for example, if you let's say eat a burger, right, or you eat like a big porridge, right? So the volume will come from the porridge because there is a fiber, right? So after you eat a burger or with a processed bun, right, and the meat inside, you will feel hunger much faster, right? Because there is not so much volume that will stay in your intestines, right? Yeah, and this is exactly what fiber will provide you. And here's a good illustration. One brownie versus like a big volume of lettuce. Yeah.
So what about buffets? So what do you eat in buffets? What are the advices?
Buffets?
If you go to buffet, what do you eat? Like
So
there.
first, it's a treat. So like, don't feel guilty because like I said, it's like everything doesn't happen like overnight. So you have one day to consider. So we'll go through the portions through the week. But first and foremost, if you have a social function like Christmas or Chinese New Year or something, don't feel guilty. You just have to be mindful about how your week overall looks. So you can go for some certain treats like sweets, whatnot, but then you have to think week-wise. And we'll teach you that in a second. So in buffet, you don't have to prevent yourself from enjoying food. Food is great, and like living in Singapore, so many options is beautiful. But
again,
stay mindful. Yeah.
I would
Have you tried
say
granola?
when I personally go to buffet, and Arseny does the same, right? So I personally don't take deep fried.
Exactly. And you don't take like stupid food like rice or potatoes. You took some delicious food like meat and fish.
Actually good.
No, but yeah.
You're never wrong just to stay on champagne whole life.
Or you take seafood, or you take like meat and fish. That's
I
it.
start with like honestly, like if it's a buffet, I start with like some veggies first, just to kind of calm myself down. Because then through veggies, they're water rich, they're fiber rich, and they basically give you the bulk. And then I would top up with some cool things. So like I would start with veggies almost everywhere I go. Veggies first. Throw in some veggies. That's probably why I'm so.
Good life hack. Or salad.
Yeah, like either stir fried or fresh veggies. Yeah, this is the portions things that we discussed, and that's for athletes. It could be a little bit different from.
Back to the point that Arseny just made, right? So you don't have to be guilty just because you had a wonderful buffet, right? So this is the idea of food composition during the week, right? So generally you should consume more vegetables than fruits, more fruits than nuts and seeds, more nuts and seeds than lean meat and fish, and more lean meat and fish than whole grains, and lastly milk and dairy, right? You still have space for like up to like, let's say 18% of your diet for all the sinful and delicious food, like that will be all the sweets, deep fried food.
Yeah, frying automatically counts. So if you have a fried vegetable portion, deep fried veggies, or like stir frying is kind of halfway there. It's already there. The reason for that is you increase the calorie intensity and you destroy fiber. So if you fry, you destroy carbohydrate. The complex carbs, you break it down with heat, and you on top of that push in more fat through pushing the oil into the formations. So you replace the idea of good food, you replace it with basically eating fat. So frying is not good. Boiling, good. Steaming, okay, can. Stir frying, already, there should be very mindful. Yeah, frying, no. So that's bad.
So if that's the case, that means Yong Tau Fu is the best.
Which
Yong Tau Fu.
Yong Tau Fu.
Yes.
Is it
Yes.
the-
Oh my
is
God,
the
that's
best?
the
Look
next.
at
That's the next
that.
slide.
Go next slide.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, get boring, right? So why is it important? First of all, you don't overeat. This is one, and secondly, this is the consistent supply of good nutrients nutrients, right? So once you selected, like, let's say, few meals that you are 100% sure provide you all the necessary nutrients that you need, then just stick to them. And one of the best options in Singapore, right, is Yong Thai food.
We are very lucky, seriously, with Yong Thai food. Yeah. But like reduce the I for example I go for the top shelf, the one with the greens. Yeah, and I take like 6-8 pieces, load it up. Maybe I add an egg, but I don't do noodles. The noodles the carbs I take them in the morning with this breakfast that we're sharing today with you, and then for lunch. My breakfast keeps me like till almost lunchtime, like 12:30 I go for lunch, and then I take Yong Tau Fu, but just soup only. Then I will do like an energy snack or some other snack, maybe 3 to 4, then I do training, then I do dinner. Because if you do good, decent breakfast, it's better to have carbs, like push them early into the day, rather than having noodles in the lunchtime. You still have space for noodles in the dinner, or like rice in the dinner, but like this is soup only approach. And that works.
Soup only approach. Nice. You need to brand it like soup only approach.
Yeah. The owners of the stalls where I go to, and you can see the amount of boring people that follow us on FoodBuddy. We made this approach scientific. We measured it.
We measured. We asked people to participate in the poll, right? And we asked them how many times a week do you guys actually eat the same food in the same place? Yes, you see, majority of them are actually quite boring people.
And explore it. It's something that excites us. When you're excited, your dopamine is secreted more. Dopamine is like the hormone of happiness. So when you're excited about the new food you try, you want to eat more of it. You will finish the larger portion, or you will overeat automatically.
And
when you get bored,
guess what actually secretes more dopamine in the body? Fat.
Yeah. So it's kind of like getting boring automatically means that you will get lean. This is very simple. So, and by the way, choking is wrong. Never choke tables.
Tissue?
No, it's like wrong. We can talk about that later.
I saw tissue. Okay, but what I heard from my friend is because Yong Tau Fu is fresh.
Yeah.
You choose your own, not say side dish. I mean, as in the veggie or this, and then they cook immediately.
Right, exactly.
Yes, so it's fresh. It's not those already pre-cooked and then
Yeah.
And the broth that they put in your soup, it is a bean broth, right? So
and they say
very
that
light
tends
and
to
delicious.
choose more colors like carrot.
Exactly. You need
egg,
to keep the
veggie.
rainbow always in your plate with fruits and vegetables. Like you can go into very scientific details, but that will consume a lot of your time. So rule of thumb, just choose the rainbow on the plate. So the more colors you have, the more nutrients you will get.
It's also like where we were hunters. I think like Neanderthal kind of like times, like 100,000 years ago, we were stupid. Like we had no idea how to fly an airplane, how to run a marathon. We didn't do anything like conceptually. We thought Earth was flat, but that time our bodies had to still have the same amount of like minerals, vitamins, and that comes through variety of food. So we were chasing different colors. That's why like as hunters, as in pickers, we were predominantly picking like bright, colorful fruits and berries. And this is why you still have to do it today, because you have variety of minerals, variety of riboflavin type like coloring minerals and microelements. So yeah, get boring.
Yeah, okay. So and to the question, so how much energy do I need to have, right? So how much food can I afford to eat? So there is a formula. This is the estimated energy requirement. Again, it will depend on the lifestyle that you have. So Arseny, can you correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the thermal effect. Thermic effect of food.
Yeah, this is what it takes you to cool yourself down when you are producing heat by metabolizing food. It's kind of weird, but it actually is a lot.
Then your basal metabolic rate plus the physical activity level that you have. So you need to put together all the components, right? and then you will figure out how much calories you need.
And speaking of calories, like the way that they measure, it's very simple. Like we sometimes are not very sure whether we look at it or not. So the way people actually came up with the idea of a calorie, it's all about energy. Energy is heat. So they closed the person in the very much controlled room, and they knew the temperature inside that room. They measured it, the scientists measured it, and then the person walks in, and then they measure the temperature in that room. So person's body exerts some heat. So calorie is the amount of energy you need to apply to warm up like a body of water by 1 degree of Celsius. So we produce heat, it's all about the heat. So it's very easy to figure out how much energy there is based on like your activity level, because you know that when you run you get hotter, when you walk you're less hotter. So it's all very much aligned, so just believe it. And the amount of physical activity a day depends on whether you take stairs when you go to MRT or not. Take a good example, whether you drive or you walk to like, I don't know, somewhere. So that's physical activity. And then it's also different by your gender, by your age. There are multiple different ways to calculate it. I think we have links for that. Is it?
Here?
Yeah, I think there were links on the next slide or something.
No.
So take a look at how much you need and then break it down in that way. So you have to have 55% coming from carbs for this ER thing, yeah, and then 15% from protein and 30% from fat.
So and to keep things simple, the first thing that you need to do is definitely avoid obvious fat, right? So
If you want to slim down.
yeah, if you want to slim down, if you want to perform better in your races, so just avoid all the deep fried, lard, butter. Yes, don't put butter on top of lard. Exactly, and be aware about the hidden fat, right? So the fat that you get in the cheese and the like deep fried potato, the whipped cream. So all this has a lot of
Do
fat as well.
not reduce carbs.
Yes, and eat good carbs, right?
I've had the Rim, one of my mentees, who
Yep.
lost extraordinary amount of weight.
Yes.
Like because I just explained to him how things work. So he lost from 100 to 85, 15 kilo in
Yes,
2 months
yeah, yeah.
by walking. Like literally, he started walking a lot. No running, like no thing. Walking a lot, avoiding fat, taking portions of fruits and veggies. 15 kilos in 2 months. And the guy is not athletic, like he didn't run, but he walked a lot, like 3 hours a day, at least 3 hours a day he walked. Burning
3
fat.
hours a day?
Yeah.
Well, he walked to work.
How many
Walk to
kilometers?
work and back. So
Yes.
he lives in Buena Vista side. Oh no, he lives in Chinese Garden side, and he walked through PCN to Buena Vista. That's like 10K walk.
Wow.
So 3 hours a day, yeah, 3 hours a day he walked, and he lost like 15 kg, easy, like no brainer, without any exercise. And he listened to, and he on the top of that he listened to a lot of music, books, yeah, audiobooks. He become smarter.
So that's about the use of high quality fuel, right? The bottom line is that during the week, not the day, right? You need to stay in the high quality range of food. You can afford eating some sinful food, but please don't make it the staple food. Don't eat it every day.
Don't live in buffet.
Don't live in buffet.
Go there for 2 hours and then go away.
Right. Do you guys have any questions?
Do you have any like cheat days allowance?
Yes, 18%.
No. Change it to mentality of like, here's my week. Like, I've already cheated myself yesterday or like 2 days ago. Now I have to wait till next week. So think about week-wise. Think about your week. Yeah. And the easiest way to do that is just to keep a food log. So if you really need like a nutritional intervention, it starts with food log. Like literally, you take pictures of food anyway. You just send it to like your mentor in food. So this is
Post on
when
Instagram.
Yeah. Well, no, it's not on Instagram. No. So when I mentor someone, so I don't have like students right now, but I mentored a total of like 6 people over the last half year. So they just have a chat with me, and without any, there's also psychological thing that people try to change their diet when someone is watching them doing the food log. So be mindful about that. But if you're looking at your week, the easiest way is just for yourself. Put it into like some folder on your phone to remember what you've eaten. And then instead of like cheating and doing a cheat day or something like that, don't like the whole diet approach. I hate it, but because diet is always mentally it's short term. This is a healthy living. Like this is like forever working. This is the good approach. I call it an approach. So then if you look at your last 7 days, you don't need to have a cheat day. You already remember, oh, I had a brownie here and I went for deep fried something here and I did this. So just wait a few more days and then you'll recover and do it once again. Otherwise, you're damaging your overall intention to achieve something, either become more endurant or weight less. And by the way, being super lean may not be healthy. Like for a lot of people, I start asking like, are you healthy? Like, are you happy? I'm like, are you happy? He keeps on telling me that he's fat. Like, he's super endurant, races fast, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Like,
You're gonna have a few kilos here.
like this is healthy. This is super healthy. Like when you're lean and you're super slim, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're happy and you're healthy. Whatever doesn't make you go like from health to negative side is okay. But then you athletic wise, you might need to consider a few more things.
Yep. Okay. So let's talk about.
So what was this awesome app?
Oh, that's the app. That's the FoodBuddy app. It didn't pick up massively because we realized we need a lot of money in the loop and no one would give it to us. So. It was a good app. We will send it over with regards. We'll throw up a party. But once the free money, it will end up soon, by the way. So once the free money behind the infrastructure will stop, I'll switch it off, and that day we will all have a party.
Yeah. So let's talk about hydration. So how much you need to drink. There is a concept that you need to drink 8 glasses a day, or especially during the race, like you need hydrate, otherwise something that will happen to you. Well, actually, it's not true, and the concept of drinking too much, especially during the race, it came together with the lobbying of few sport drinks in the United States. So I think if you just Google for in Google Scholar, right? So this is the
filtered Google, yeah, for
yes.
research paper.
For research papers, and you like just to look at the researches that were sponsored by Gatorade.
By Gatorade Sports Science Institute is the one that is a special entity that belongs to Gatorade firm, and that basically is distributes the grants. So those are automatically biased, like by Gatorade, right? So those that are like on Google, you can see them, how many, like 45 different science papers that were sponsored by Gatorade.
So together with the boom of sport drinks, right, came this the whole idea that you need to hydrate yourself. So, but you need to trust yourself. You need to trust your thirst, right? And drink by thirst. This is the best thing that you can do because you will not go wrong. Once you're thirsty, that means you need to drink. You need to hydrate yourself.
On that, by the way, we didn't cover that in the section before. A lot of times we snack and we eat fruits or something because we actually got thirsty. So if you're snacking, first have snacks that are healthy, and then sometimes you don't even need to snack. Try drinking like half cup of water just to check. Like sometimes you come up to the fridge and you're like, I want to eat something, but actually it's because you're craving for water, and your body is quite sotong, it's blurred, so it cannot distinguish where, it cannot distinguish where it wants water or where it wants water from food. So just like sometimes you just need water, so you have like a half cup of glass and figure that.
So the danger of over drinking is that diluting your sodium, right? So the electrolytes content that you have in your body, and during the race it can lead to very unpleasant results because you are already sweating, you're already losing a lot of electrolytes, and if you drink more and you dilute them more, then what will happen to you during the race?
Yeah, so you actually, race-wise, you can decrease. I mean, I'm not sure how many people here will run Comrades Marathon in South Africa. It's kind of weird, but yeah. So they run through the desert and they measured. This is coming from a book. They measured how many problems of too much diluted electrolytes were there over years, and they realized that people that drink over thirst, they just mentally don't control the thirst. They instead go for every aid station and drink because they think that they race in the desert. Like they think that it's better to drink more. Some of them collapsed. Some of them actually died over years through the dilution of natrium. Like basically you lose electrolytes from your cells, and you don't have any. At that point, like all negative effects start to happen. Like there are like science behind it. I don't want to go into the details. And then they started looking more across other marathons like that, and those marathons are controlled by the body, the International Federation of like whatever the not the track and field. There's like basically the body that suggests how many drinks a person have to do. Like there's at least some certain amount of training versus some amount of water, and those suggestions by the International Body of Field and Track, they are completely lobbied. They appear to be lobbied out by these sport drinks producers. And then we can see the amount of deaths as like more and more requirements on drinks served through the marathons.
All those red posters that you see here.
Yeah, so the guy actually correlates, I mean, it's kind of apples to me, because he basically sees like, hey, in this event, based on the regulations for this event, we push more water, and we put advertisement and like articles in the magazines for runners that you need to drink more, and then all of a sudden the amount of deaths through the hyponatremia starts to ramp up. So it's like there is some correlation there.
Right. These are like more details about the hyponatremia philosophy. All right. So here's what you need to have when you are racing. So this is something that Arseny constantly has.
Yeah,
in his pocket.
I do salt sticks without any additional like sugar. There is not too much. Huh? Oh, they are sold like Lazada. Like you can get them from this right here. But yeah, no, Lazada, like any online store.
Yeah.
Salt sticks are everywhere. Yeah, and the good idea about them, like there is this research that says it's better the electrolytes are absorbed better if they're a compound with some amount of carbohydrates. That's why like 100 Plus and all these manufacturers of water, they are kind of like having their go. But again, this research is again funded. Like if you dig into like who invented this idea, it was by Gatorade Sport. So I don't drink any sugary drinks. I just go electrolytes purely, and then when I'm going for thirst, like really when I want to drink, I go for water. So I don't mix the electrolyte drink. Electrolytes separately, drink separately. That's the idea.
You do have any questions here? So once we start talking about the race, right? So the food that you see on the table, this is actually an ideal food before the race. So like really good source of carbohydrates. It will keep you going for quite some time. This is something that you should have like at least 2 to 2.5 hours before the race. So what you should have after the race, and this is what is considered as a recovery, right? So let's talk more about that. Huh?
What Marcus should have now?
What Marcus should have now.
Are you still riding, I think?
No, God bless him, no.
I thought you joined the ride this morning.
No,
I thought you joined.
We have one rider, for those guys that are not aware, like we have one rider who yesterday did for charity something called Everesting. That's 8.8 kilometers of total elevation. So when I met him, he already done 200 kilometers flat, and among that there was only 5K elevation. So in that day he started like 4 a.m. yesterday, he ended up like 7 p.m. So yesterday he climbed total Everest.
So
in Sentosa.
Sorry,
I forgot to say this. Like in our local surrounding of Singapore, that means 150 times into small hill, because we don't have hills in Singapore.
So I'm 100% sure what Marcus has right now is a delayed onset muscle syndrome. This is what he has. So his body will likely is in pain and will be even more in pain tomorrow. So so this is usually what happens to you after intensive training, is that you start feeling pain all over your body, and this is named as a DOS, delayed onset muscle syndrome. So actually, there is no real proof why this happened to our
For
body.
muscle soreness, like when you start to read latest articles, they're very accurately written. All the controlled studies, they're like, we don't really know, but it looks like maybe to some degree it is because like they're like, when someone says he has a solution for you, don't trust him. Like there's with nutrition and with like all these things, like even now in 2019, there is no, it's not like technology, it's not like 220 volts in your socket. Like this, it's not. It's like very, very ambiguous.
Yeah, so can you please comment this?
Yeah, so it appears that a prevalence of our recovery, like prevalence cases of good recovery is associated with the right intake of important vitamins. They are vitamin B12, vitamin C, and that's pretty much it. So, and riboflavin, which automatically means that you can drink wine for recovery, by the way. So.
No wonder.
So that's the point. So for DOMS, basically go for vitamin C, vitamin B12, and riboflavin. That's the all things you can get. Easiest one is guavas, kiwis, papayas. Yeah. So if you load them up proactively, because it takes time for you to kind of metabolize them. So after an eccentric exercise, if you go for a really long run, eat it during the run. So like, for example, when I was running this infamous Chiang Mai run, the 100 miler with 8,000 meters of elevation, I was just lucky that they were serving guavas as a snack on the 8 stations. And I kept on papayas are too soft, they don't hold up.
Papaya was the recovery meal at the end. Yes.
And at the end, I was eating papayas at the end. So I was chugging them like crazy, and people were stopping by eating like carbs and everything. I'm like, okay, on carbs, like more importantly, like vitamin. That's why the next day I actually was okay. I could walk stairs. Like a lot of people were like zombies crawling. So.
Yeah. Green tea is also really great recovery drink. Yes, green tea.
Bananas?
Bananas will not help.
They don't have a lot of vitamins. It's just like
good
it
to
has a lot
have
of
potassium.
fructose.
Yeah. But actually, kiwis.
We have this what's that? Good greens. This is a good powder. Oh, that's a product. Wait. There's a good powder. The one that from Newzest, but we don't have it anymore, right?
Which one? The good
The
green
good
stuff?
greens,
Oh,
yeah.
it's really great. Yeah. No, we don't have it anymore.
Yeah.
It was too good. We finished it. Yeah.
So there's basically like a couple of different stirred veggies and stirred fruits, and they are a good balance of minerals and vitamins in a powder. So you stir it up into like a milkshake or like a yogurt shake. And
Actually, anything. I used to mix it with sparkling water. It was also great.
yeah, so basically vitamin C, B12, riboflavin, they are considered to be well connected to healthy delayed onset muscle prevention.
Yeah, take a low fat plain yogurt to make a shake.
And by the way, yeah, this is the 2-hour thing. We talked about compensation, right? Recovery starts when you do an eccentric exercise. If you're doing habitual exercise, you don't need recovery. Do not treat yourself with extra meal thinking that you are recovering. Recovery is like when you've done like a long ride, like around the island, 3 hours, 4 hours. Maybe then you need to have like some yogurt or something like that. If you just went for like a 60K and like ridden for maybe 1 or 2 hours, how can you do 60K in 1 hour? If you done like 60K for 2 hours, then you don't need recovery. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, okay, so that's all about recovery. Do you guys have any questions? So we are very close to the end of the
Maybe yeah. If you guys just like have any questions, we're happy to like share with you more ideas and more like things that we know, or I can take some. If you really want to research something that was top of mind, a lot of people they heard something. I don't have answers for everything. I read a lot of books and I read a lot of books in National Library. And also it is actually our National Library here in Singapore, it has really a lot of books that are able to train you for a particular goal. That's pretty cool. When you have like, for example, a triathlon coming or you want to run a marathon, there are tons of different training plans and they're all available in books that are in NLB. So yeah, you can ask me like some questions, I can follow up, give you some answers. Like I don't have everything top of mind, but in essence, I also want to reach out to that table and have a little bit of some food because we were going to
Yeah.
And
So,
this is
yeah.
very important.
Lastly is
Yeah.
just remember that your heart is a muscle, right?
Two things, yeah. Remember that the heart is a muscle. So when you don't have enough O2, you can prevent it by training intervals. So heart really grows, and it's cardiovascular system. It's not only one thing. So your muscle, your ability to take oxygen by muscle can be improved, can be reduced based on your exercise regimen. The amount of volumetric uptake of oxygen by your lungs can be trained. So the alveolus in our lungs, they're able to be more efficient if you train them. The heart itself can grow, it can pump more blood more frequently with the higher volume of a stroke. So that all is trained by intervals. So it's important to have like a mixture of, so you know when people say I'm training for the marathon and they always go like just jog. No good. Like it doesn't improve. Maybe you burn fat, but you're not improving your cardiovascular system. So one is you can improve oxygen, and then another thing, if you look at the picture here, when you go beyond the threshold and you're not getting enough oxygen, you're going into the anaerobiasis, and then the lactic acid is kicked into your muscle. That's our lady there. Yeah. It starts to kind of like poison the muscle, and the muscle starts to get cramped, and you basically collapse. Look at this picture once again. Do you notice something? Like there's one very important observation in this picture. I really love it. Like, do you notice what actually controls that?
O2.
Yeah, it's oxygen, right? So, Lily, can you go next slide?
Yeah.
It's a brainless model. Yeah? So remember, the best muscle you can train is in between the ears. What you think is irrelevant. So like, when you're thinking that you're tired, when you're like, I cannot hold it anymore, I cannot get to the finish line.
Bullshit.
But remember this, it's all in between the ears. When you will collapse through the excessive amount of lactic acid in your muscles, and it's like people actually, there are all these pictures on the opposite side of the spectrum. They are crawling, their body is not listening, but they're crawling to the finish line with like paralyzed legs and everything because they have strong will. So remember, the most important muscle is in between the ears.
So that's basically, I hope you enjoyed it.
Good stuff.
Please guys, we do still have some snacks. Try these energy balls. I hope you will like them.
Energy balls are good.
Granola,
My
you like them?
question, have you ever heard of keto diet?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
What is keto diet?
Is it
What zone
workable? High fat.
High
Is
fat.
it workable?
It depends, like, I didn't try it myself. The science behind it is okay. The evidence of controlled studies is okay. The idea behind the keto diet is like you force your glycogen production through ketosis of fats. So you're not taking in additional carbohydrates for one reason or another. And basically you supply, your brain still needs glucose. You supply just the minimum amount of glucose by ketosis, and then your body entirely works on triglycerides, on fats. Their controlled studies suggest that it's A, not really great diet for athletes overall, and then B, it's not improving your performance. So for those people with particular markers of health like diabetes, for example, it's almost inevitable because you want to control the sugar level in the blood. So a lot of people that have like predisposition for diabetes mellitus or like any other markers, there are many markers, they are suggested to go in keto diet. It's again, like, I didn't try it myself. I have a lot of friends that do keto diet. They sometimes go like really hard on like fat, no carb, like really hard, and at the same time I see them slimming down. So looking at them, it works. You also can sense that the person is on keto diet by the smell of their breath, because basically it's acetone, like the amount of ketones in your body, in overall in your blood and everywhere increases, and it goes back into the lungs, and you can actually smell the breath of like the person through the lungs and through the stomach. So you can smell that the person is on like this kind of diet when it has like a very sugarish, kind of like sweetenish intense smell of the breath, and it's not through mints.
Mm.
That's yeah, because their body actually works in always oxidizing the fats. I didn't do it. I don't plan to do it. And again, like, we are talking about high carbohydrate diet for a reason. Like, it just worked. Like what I tested on myself, it works for me right now. But if you want to slim down, there is a very simple answer. Like, if people say like, oh, you want to lose weight, go keto. That's BS. Because you can go slim down in many ways, and the easiest one is like you just stop eating fats, not carbs. Fats, visible fats, invisible fats, reducing them. And then you go for long aerobic exercises. Like I told you, I should probably pull. It's in our Facebook page. His chart of the weight. I'll show you this one. It's pretty cool. And we go for food body. It's in the about of our Facebook page. That was pretty cool.
Do you have a video of you running after 19 miles or no? Like 95th mile or something?
I have a video of you.
I ran uphill.
Yes.
Actually, I finished strong. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yes.
So where is the about here? Our story. See more. This is my mentees. This is for real. Which way? This way. So I want to show you this, guys. This is the intervention that I told you, like cutting down visible fats and invisible fats and 3 hours walking a day. Like, he's not cycling, not running, so he went from like 90 to drop to 80. So like 10 kg. I was thinking 15. Sorry for that. Like, actually mix him up with something. Yes, yeah, but that's real. That's real intervention. Like in 1 month. And then he dropped to like 78.5 or something. He's healthy. They just conceived the babies.
Yeah.
Very super happy for him. But it's basically a food log, concentration, idea of the like week-wise idea of the portions, a lot of aerobic work. And I started adding him like to my runs. Like I would run 30K, and then he would join me on the last 10K, like when my pace goes down. So in the very end, like in September, he started running. So that's where he got like through 80 and down. Yeah. So it's just working. So.
But I think he adjusted his so-called what is it called, the diet, right?
So it's predominantly through food. Yeah. So him and I, we went through his. He went boring on the lunches. I taught him about like the places around his workplace. So I told him like eat either this or this. So it was like over here. I adjusted, like it was a food log, adjustment of his habits, getting him bored, a lot of walks, like long aerobic exercises, like crazy lots of working for him. Because if he started running, he would destroy his knees. He was massively overweight. His BMI was like 37 or something. So yeah, and then adjusting the diet, aerobic exercise. That's it. So there it is.
When you say aerobic exercise, does it mean? I mean, I heard a lot of them saying maintaining at what zone 2. Like you can be myself running, they say maintain at zone 2, so you can progressively you can go faster even though you still maintain at zone 2.
No, so basically zone 2 changes. So
I don't know what zone 2 about.
Yeah, zone 2. So the heart rate is, so you take your maximum. So you go for the ECG. You go for like electrocardiograms during load, and then. What happens is like you do the exercise, you start walk, then you jog, and then this thing starts to go up. So it's a controlled test. Like they know how much every incline, and then you have your limit in your brain. And man, like you stop at some point. And when they push you, they encourage you, they push, and there's something like I give up. A lot of people don't even complete it. It's actually very simple to complete when you're healthy, but like. ECG, you at some point, like people say, like, then they're dead. So that measures your top heart rate, the maximum heart rate. Then below maximum heart rate, there is this ambiguous like threshold called the lactate threshold, LT. This is considered to be like by different studies
some amount of percents below the maximum heart rate. Usually it's considered like 15% below the max observed. It is possible to actually measure it, but it's very complex. So it's not like cardio. To measure your lactate threshold is basically when there is not enough oxygen pumped through your cardiovascular system to support your exercise. At that point, your body starts to generate lactic acid that supplements the oxygen. So there is no oxygen coming from the lungs, from the cardiovascular system. The body can generate an acid that contains enough oxygen for you to sustain your need for oxygen, to keep on metabolizing fuels. But the remains of that, the lactate, they are poisonous. So that's why the muscles will collapse at some point. So when you're beyond LT, you stop. So you and then like everything hurts and you can no longer move. It's the lactose, right? It's the lactic acid, sorry. The after effect. You can measure that. You can actually figure that, but then you need to have like an analyzer of your breath, and it's kind of very expensive. So there are tests that you can do in Singapore, they're like $300 at least, if I'm not mistaken, to measure that. That's why we have, like, when I'm sending all this, hey, let's go for NUS or NTU for free measurements, because they will measure our lactate or VO2 max. That's for free. Like, there are lots of tests that Singapore research groups do, and they, as a side effect for athletes, they let you know all these things. So this is the LT. LT is considered the zone 4. So zone 4 ends, begins zone 5. Lactate threshold is like beginning of zone 5. Zone 5 is max HR. So then sub is basically zone 4. It's called sub-LT. This is where you have to train your intervals. You really need to go for this intervals training. That's zone 4. Zone 3 is a good aerobic base. We actually skip that. In our training, we don't even use zone 3. Like, we go like zone 2, zone 4. Zone 3, like, doesn't exist. Yeah, and zone 2 is like where you can have, it's considered when you run. So you're in zone 2 when you can have a long, productive conversation. When you're feeling like you have to skip words, that's you're in kind of like in zone 2. And like scientifically, you can measure those zones are like.
Zone 2 or zone 3?
Zone 3.
Skip words.
Huh?
When you
Skip words is zone 3. Zone 4 you can sustain a conversation. Zone 5 is like you die. Yeah. So zone 2 when you're cycling and we have like a palish chat, that's zone 2. Zone 3 is like we can be like, let's go faster. Zone 4 is like you're like. And zone 5 you're falling. So that's 5. And zone 1 is walk. So that's the concept of zones. There are many different algorithms to calculate them. They are adjusting as you improve your cardiovascular system. They move, they slide. But also in our context, for example, in our race group, zone 2 means everything. Like we just say like zone 2, it's not zone 2, it's like flat out like zone 5, it's also zone 2. So that's why our newspaper is called zone 2. Because it doesn't exist. Like it's just always like non-zone 2, but we still call it zone 2. Yeah. But zone 2 basically is like if you can jog and you have like a real long productive conversation. Zone 3 is like you can talk but you're running out of breath. Zone 4 is like you can say something shortly, like really, really shortly. Zone 5 you cannot speak and you'll fall down. That's the idea. Does it explain the zone? Yeah. And then trust Garmin, like if you have the best thing you should invest if you have like a Garmin is the heart rate monitor, the wearable one, because the optical one is it's like plus 10 bips or something.
So how does it correspond to zones, the heartbeat?
It is zone to zone. So you split it in percents. If you do the really good exercise, the really good measurement to do is to figure out your LT. LT is when you switch from, LT is also when you switch from like the fully aerobic to semi-anaerobic. So this is like the plus minus one. You can do that by, when you burn, it's all by heart rate. So the quick answer to your question is like, there is like percentage of your max heart rate, which forms this, and this. Like I had it written out in my, like I think in this. There's something called Bruce test, the one that on the ECG, it's called the Bruce test. And I've done it, for example, and I figured like my zone 1 in 2015 is like 124 to 132, then zone 2 is like 133 to 146, whatnot. So there's this test, the Bruce VO2 max test on ECG. It gives you VO2 max and your threshold, and then from the threshold max heart rate observed, you can count the zones. It's like, in essence, it's percentages of it. It's individual. And the reason why you control the heart rate and the way you can measure it is that when you oxidize fat, you produce a substantial amount of CO2 and water, of course. And when you burn glycogen, your CO2 production is lower, much lower. So what happens is when you're in the aerobic zones and you have enough oxygen to use the triglycerides and fat, the composition of your air intake has air intake based on your volume of the lungs has some certain amount of oxygen. You can count, knowing the formulas, how much you expect the CO2 to come out based on the energy that you expel on the treadmill, because it's a controlled study. So you can actually connect all these dots. And then you can start measuring the exhaled, the exhaled CO2. And ideally, you exhale 0 oxygen. So you take all the oxygen in, right? Then when you move into when the treadmill inclines and it becomes faster, at some point you start using your glycogen. So your CO2 drops, right? And because you start mixing it into your energy sources, your CO2 exhaled drops. And when you're going into the threshold, you're like, oh, I cannot actually, my demand on the oxygen is so high, and I pump that much in and out that sometimes you actually exhale a bit of oxygen. You don't take it all. Like your body is not able to take it. Your lactate process already started. So then they measure that, oh, even O2 is exhaled a bit. So you kind of bounce it out. You're not able to absorb it. You're like pushing. And at that point, it should be like a lot of CO2. It should be, it should be reducing CO2. So this is how you can measure the efficiency of your kind of like fuel intake. It's also like doable in Singapore, like they put the mask on it, like it's a control test. But trust me, just don't take my word for granted, figure it out yourself. But like if you're doing intervals, at some point it will be easier, like not for the muscles built out, it'll be easier for you to run like slow. Your slow, perceived effort. There's also like mentality thing, not really the timing. For the same effort, you will run your usual jogging will improve in pace for the same effort if you do intervals more and more, because you will train your cardiovascular system to take more oxygen, and then when you're in zone 2, you'll be able to pump more oxygen in, make better use of your fats. So that's why if you blend in more interval trainings just for like 2 weeks, 2 times a week you do like uphill runs, or 3 times a week do like uphill runs for 2 weeks. On the 3rd week, your usual perceived effort will have a much better pace. It's because the oxygen intake. And then it bounces like, oh, after my ultra, I was eating like crazy, drinking, like I grew and then I'm shrinking again. It's like, it's all very funny how you observe yourself. Like, who's got scale? Who's got scale at home? Measure your weight. Okay, who measures weight regularly?
No longer.
See no evil.
Who has, yeah. One thing that you should start doing is like have a table or buy those scales with the Wi-Fi so that you have the weight low, so that you can observe yourself. It's pretty cool. So you can, it's all very manageable when you know the basics.
It's scary to see the body fat. And the
I mean, you're making fun out of it, but like, it's actually why scary. It should be okay. If you're feeling, as I said, like if you're feeling okay, if you're feeling like you're happy, you're healthy, your doctor, when you go for like blood check, it says that you don't have like a super high cholesterol level or like bad LDL or something. If you like, then why you say it's so scary? Like just observe, it's like the usual one.
Scared to see the number.
Scared to see the number, especially if it's facts.
But it's good. You need to have the monitoring system figured out, and it's very simple. These days you have all these smart scales that upload everything to your app, and you're like what we've seen in that picture. Right? So cool. So stay healthy, eat clean. So you are healthy.
Yeah, healthy. You're saying earlier sort of the longer,
lower intensity stuff in the morning and sort of high intensity in the evening.
Yeah, the morning wall protocol.
I mean, sort of schedule-wise, I can't do that.
You can, no, Friday. Do before RTI. This is the idea. Do a heat on Friday night. Don't recover with carbs on Friday night. And then don't top up the glycogen stores before the RTI. Do the RTI.
Yes, because I normally don't. I don't eat before going out usually. RTI now, right? Because I make some.
Yeah. So adjust your dinner, the Friday night dinner, adjust it so that there's 0 carbs. The idea is through the night when you sleep, you still have your thermic effect of food and your BMR to keep yourself warm, to keep the body organs working and like all that. But the point is, after heat, you kind of leave empty glycogen. You use the homeostasis in the body to top up glycogen through the residual fats. Then you use this glycogen because the body organs, they predominantly tap onto like glycogen. It's just easy. You use this glycogen through the night. You wake up low glycogen. That's why pre-race breakfast is important. So pre-race breakfast also tops it up back to like 100% of capacity. Remember I said like it's on 2,000 kilocalories or something in there. So then you go RTI, then you deplete it again, but you do low intensity. So if you do like a real RTI, like zone 2 without James' law, so when you do a real round the island race, you actually use predominantly triglycerides, and then that triggers a signal to your cardiovascular system to improve VO2. Are you calling James now?
No. Just you can see my.
Can I share with you, if let's say before a pre-race, for example, a marathon,
Yeah.
a 21 or 42,
Yeah.
I mean in the morning before a race,
Yeah.
just 2 eggs and 1 Milo, is it sufficient?
No, I don't think it's enough carbs. No, it's not. I don't think it's enough carbs.
So
You need
Stay
to.
off the protein.
So I would
morning
say.
at breakfast before you go to a race.
So you need
Not
to.
the overnight.
You
not
need
the
to
dinner.
basically remember we talked about grams of carbs
Correct.
per kilogram of
Correct.
body weight.
Correct.
So your usual race, the big race, is also prepended by something called taper. So you reduce to let your muscles recover before the race. You reduce the amount of training the week before or like 2 weeks before, and then you basically have fresh muscles and then you go for it. So you're not going for any eccentric exercise. You're doing very light exercises. So through the week, you also have to follow the amount of running. The same principle applies. You go into the lower category of minutes a week or minutes a day over the taper week. So you reduce your carbohydrate intake, ideally. So your muscles are tapering. Your stress on the body is tapering. But then if you go for an all-out effort during the race, not just to have a finisher shirt, but to real race, you need a lot of carbs to support it. So the breakfast before the race allows you to have the last, it depends on what was your carbo loading. There's something called carbo loading, fat loading, usually carbo loading only. The 2 days before the race, you should tweak your ER, like your daily calorie intake. You tweak it so that 80% of your intake is through carbs, so that most of that sticks into your liver, it stays in the muscles. Your glycogen has to be topped up, so that in the race you have maximum amount of glycogen in the body. So your breakfast before the race is the last ability to top up the glycogen stores. So that's why having a light breakfast, and when you said just a couple of eggs would have like a good content ratio. They will have good ratio of carbs and protein, but it's not carbs. So rather than doing 2 eggs, have like a real carbo-rich morning food. Also, if you're running for 4 hours, you may feel hungry. That's why we suggest oats and this kind of like this brekkie that you've had, like the oatmeal, because it has a lot of fiber and it's not very heavy. The food is easily metabolized. You don't have a gut bomb, because if you're running for 4 hours a full marathon, or I'm on the bike, or if I swim then bike then run for like 10 hours or like sub 10 on a triathlon, it's a long day out. You don't have like a chance to stop by and like, eat. No makana. So then basically you have full hearty brekkie that also keeps you not hungry. Yeah, and also important to empty out. So you need to stop eating the day before. You need to stop eating early, So you give your body enough time to prepare for the motion, and then you need to empty out, because you need to, last thing you want to do is you run the toilets in the race, right? So that's sometimes happens to inexperienced people. They go potty to potty because they have a huge adrenaline level, and they start eating unfamiliar food because they start eating energy gels. They didn't train for energy gels. The body responds and they go like, oh, poo poo. So, and it's like timer ticking. It's your A race. You waited for it for half a year, and then you're going like, instead of running to the finish, you're running to the toilet. So be mindful about 3 things. Stopping, so doing the carbo loading, then topping up your last top up with hearty, fiber-rich still break it. So the best one is oats. Like it's individual, but like I suggest it's easiest. Oats with honey, yeah, and then yeah, making sure that you're acquainted with the food in race nutrition is known to you. So like if you plan for certain gels for your race, you need to try them out like month in advance, train your guts, and yeah, you will have this excitement because it's a race. You're going like with thousands of people. Like you will have all predisposals to stress out. So you need to be also checking in, like your food and metabolization will be impacted. But you need to be checking in mentally, like, okay, I'll run, I'll eat it then, and not overeat, not undereat. So have a race nutrition plan as well. So that's what I'm saying. Like when you're just doing 2 eggs, not enough, and then I mean it depends also how you topped yourself up. You may have eaten like a ton of noodles the day before.
Oh, I'm a novice in cycling and stress running. Yes.
A question about dairy. Like, how do you advise against it? I mean, like in smaller amounts from your presentation.
We don't. There's a lot. It's a very big topic, honestly. Like dairy products, availability of milk changed over last century. So again, like we're in the different problem that like 100 years ago. So 100 years ago, or even 50 years ago, yeah. Now getting milk is super easy. Everyone is different. Some people have lactose intolerance or predisposals for it. A lot of European people, for some reason, started to have like lactose intolerance all of a sudden. So it's a very big topic. Generally speaking, a glass a day is not bad. For myself, I think glass a day will give you it's actually water based, so it's a good glass of hydration. Then B, it brings a lot of protein. It's a good lactose itself is a carbohydrate. See, when you're drinking milk, you also like to some degree you're mixing in lactose in it. It carries the calcium with the needed proportion to lactose, so it's easy to metabolize calcium. It's not bad, but then as usual, like if you exaggerate it, if you drink like 2-3 glasses, I don't think that it's healthy. Again, it's very opinionated topic. Everyone who might try to there is no finite answer as usual in nutrition, but like it is considered, if it's not bad, it will consider coming either as part of the food already. So like for example, we add a little bit of, is that a milk base as well, right? No, it's pure the.
There is almond milk.
Almond milk. Okay, so Lily, yeah,
you can see we eat.
But why not healthy? Because of fats or because of what? What if you do low fat milk?
It's a bit, yeah, I mean, but low fat milk will not saturate you a lot. Actually, you will provoke you to drink more milk also. So it's like all these things because.
And you get more protein, and you get more calcium.
And you get a little bit more protein
Why
and more
not?
calcium, but
What
how you
better
can
milk?
control it.
What
Then you
better
get into this nitty-gritty details, like whether I'm doing it right or not. And a lot of people, they are like, for some religious persons, they are like, yes milk or no milk. But what I'm saying is
because
like
almond milk is also fatty. It's also fatty.
Yeah, it is.
It's also fatty, yeah. So no, actually,
we
there is a study showing that lactose actually destroys antioxidants, right? If you mix dairy products with all the berries and fruits that antioxidant rich, then it considered that it may kill it, right? But again, back to our saying point, it really depends how much.
in that study, it was like 2 glasses, I think, that they measured. Yes, like if you drink a lot of milk, it offsets the minerals and
antioxidants. A dollop of
antioxidants.
yogurt on top of your big bowl of fruits, that will definitely not kill all the antioxidants, and there is also antioxidant absorption threshold, right? So your body will not be able to absorb all the antioxidants that are on your plate.
It depends, actually. You can get toxicity from vitamin C.
Exactly.
Yeah, but like you can then basically, when you have one of the things when you have toxicity, you're offered to drink milk, like as a counter effect. So milk actually stops the toxicity. Toxins are washed out by milk because it actually absorbs additional minerals that could be excessively toxic. It absorbs the lactose and the offsets it. Like I don't remember the exact biochemics behind it, but it then just puts it into the urine and excretes it. I don't remember the exact biomechanics of that, but yeah, the study that Lee referred to was the blueberries. They are actually a very rich source of antioxidants. That's why we always mix them in. And like the control group didn't have traces of vitamin C and all the other minerals that come from blueberries if they mixed it with like a glass of milk. So there was controlled study. So it basically offsets it net. So you're not getting it in the blood because milk kind of counters it. But at the same time, as I say, like it's a very religious topic. So I'm not pro and cons. He needs to go to sleep.
He needs to get some milk, by the way.
He needs to get to sleep. That's his sleep time. Yeah, so. We're done. Okay, cool. I will actually eat now some granola. That was very cool. I was watching you eat it.